Welcome to Pop Culture Retro, which was recently voted the 15th best podcast by the residents of the Golden Years Retirement Community in Boca Raton, Florida. Each show, we'll revisit some of your favorite pop culture memories with insider and outsider perspectives. Now, please help me welcome your hosts, Ike Eisenmann and Jonathan Rosen.
Hello, and welcome to another edition of Pop Culture Retro. I'm one of your hosts, Jonathan Rosen, along with Ike Eisenmann. And today we are thrilled to welcome one of the lead singers and founders of one of the most successful groups of all time, with 18 top 40 hits, including 3 number ones, Good Lovin', Groovin', and People Got to Be Free. And along with his band, the Rascals, is a member of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And he's also the author of the upcoming book, Memoir of a Rascal, which comes out March 22nd. We're excited to have the legendary singer of Blue-Eyed Soul, Felix Cavaliere. Felix, thank you so much for joining us today.
My pleasure.
Always thrilled to welcome a fellow New Yorker.
Yes, thank you.
There. To start with, I want to say I could listen to A Girl Like You on a loop all day long and never grow tired of it. Always been a huge fan. And I read that your mother started you at piano at a very young age.
Sure, yeah. Yeah, she kind of recognized the kind of a talent there, and so she enrolled me in a very serious music school. For about 8 years of my life, I did 3 lessons a week, so I got a really good foundation.
But you were playing for audiences as well at a young age?
Well, recitals, but I mean, the emphasis was to be a classical musician.
Right. I thought it was readings.
Yeah. So we would go down to, places like Carnegie Hall, and it was a whole different world, obviously from what, I ended up being, but it was really very, very helpful, to my musical knowledge.
Now, when did
I can well imagine. I'm sorry, I'm jumping in.
Go ahead. Yeah, sure.
I have like zero musical gifts at all, and yet I have this burning desire to learn to play piano at an older age. And as much as I enjoyed it, it's like I could not get myself coordinated with it in any way, shape, or form.
Oh, you should try a different instrument. Try a guitar.
That's exactly what I was thinking of, because I mean, just trying something else out for fun. So I mean,
it's just like when I first moved from New York to Connecticut, I tried to learn skiing.
Yeah.
Forget it. You know what I mean?
Okay, there you go.
No way. It's not going to happen. You got to start young. But guitar is, I hate to say an easier instrument, but it is an easier instrument to play something on. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I totally get what you're saying. So sorry I jumped in there.
No, but I mean, like I say, with YouTube, man, you can learn anything,
That's true.
Oh,
my son just picked up piano by ear, and I'm so jealous because I cannot whatsoever.
Well, still, I mean, it's good to do it by ear, but there's a tremendous amount of training that goes to any kind of musical instrument, but especially a piano, because you see, the piano is kind of like it's like the king, you know what I mean? Basically, because you've got all the instruments represented on that keyboard. If you think about it, got the bass over here. We got the rhythm in the middle. We got the melodies on the top. It's all there. So it's really like something that, when you want to learn music, a keyboard is great.
So you were classically trained. When did the focus start shifting from that to rock, to the interest in rock?
Well, basically, it was a combination of a bad event and a good event. My mom passed, so the onus was taken off of me. You know what I mean? She really, really, really wanted me to do that. And then I went to junior high, and this is in my book, which, I'm repeating myself, but I went to junior high, and this gentleman, this fellow who was to become my best friend, was sitting right in front of me in my first day of homeroom. You guys remember homerooms, right? I don't know if they still have homerooms, Now your homeroom is your home, right?
Yeah.
And he asked me, he said, hey, you like rock and roll? And I had never heard of anything of the sort. I mean, we're pretty sequestered into that classical world. They really don't want you polluting your mind with pop music. But I said yes because, you know, I didn't want to appear like, you know, hey, man, you know, this is a square guy. So I went home that evening. And, you know, we had the really good fortune growing up near New York City. I grew up in Westchester County of having Alan Freed, who brought, as you all know, rock and roll from Cleveland to New York. So I heard, you know, the piano players doing something I never could imagine. Ray Charles, Jerry Lee Lewis, Fats Domino. These are playing the same instrument as I, but what is that, you know? And it just really, talk about an epiphany. I mean, it was just like, wow, I got to try this, you know?
So those were some of your earliest influences?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and don't forget, I mean, those days were just magical in terms of the music that was on the radio. I mean, my God, it was, talk about the best singers. You know, in those days, we didn't have the auto tunes that we have now, you know. I'm sure you're aware of auto tune. You know, auto tune is like the spell check you have, you know, you don't have to spell anymore. You just hit the button, right? It's the same thing with singing. I mean, you don't have to sing anymore. You just go in the studio and then the guy, you go home and the engineer cleans you all up. You know, all of a sudden, wow, look at a great voice this guy has. But in the old days, older days, there were some singers that were magnificent, you know, and I'm talking about the Benny Kings, the Clyde McFadders, you know, the Marvin Gayes, Smokey Robinsons, all of these groups, Flamingos, the Penguins, you know, I mean, the Platters, I mean, just magnificent, you know, and I'm using only the males. I mean, it was incredible.
I actually got introduced to your music at a very young age. I mean, the Rascals' greatest hits was always played in the house. I remember
Nice.
my parents played it a lot. But now the first band you were in was Joey D and the Starlighters. How did you get involved with them?
Well, basically what happened is, you know, I was off to Syracuse University to be a doctor, to be a pre-med. My family comes from that profession primarily. And started a group up there. You know, I had also been part of a group in high school, you know, and we got a summer job at the Catskill Mountains. Now, anyone who's not familiar with the Catskill Mountains really missed a lot of fun, you know, because that was the place. And basically what it was a hotel called the Raleigh. And basically our band was, this was right around the time of the Twist. So our band was like kind of like the house band in a sense. I mean, there was an orchestra, of course, for the big room, the nightclub, but we played for the kids. We played for the lounge at the end of the evening for the grown-ups. And we also played, you know, cocktail hours and things like that. It was really fun. And every weekend at the hotels, a band would come in, a star, a headliner, as they call. One of the headliners that came in was Joey D and the Starlighters, who had this big hit called Peppermint Twist. And to make a long story short, they saw me. And then a couple of months later, when I was supposed to go back to school, they needed an organ player because their organ player quit and they were in Europe doing a tour. Lo and behold, next thing I know, I'm in Frankfurt, Germany, and I'm in Sweden, and there's this group opening up for Joey D with a strange name. It's called the Beatles. So before they came to US of A, I saw this phenomenon. And that kind of like, well, it just gave me like, I mean, wow, this looks like a lot of fun. You know, you hear all these young ladies screaming at the top of their lungs, and you know the idolation and then the music. And I said, man, I could do this. Let me try it. So that's the capsule version of how I got into it.
From the Beatles, the Beatles pushed.
Yeah, I mean, so I have to address that. Was it as impactful for you seeing them for the first time? Did you have an idea that they were going to go on and become so massive?
Well, you had to. I mean, like I say, it was total hysteria in this room.
Wow.
You know, I mean, you walk into a club, you know, and all of a sudden it's like everybody's just hysterical. I mean, that's the only word you can use. I mean, there was no sanity in that room. It was like, what the hell is going on here? You know, oh, that's the Beatles. Why? You know, oh, these guys over there with long hair. So, wow, what is this all about? And so basically, I've said this so many times, but I listened to them, and as a musician, I said, well, wow, they're like a singing group. I thought they were more of a singing group than a playing group, yeah, because, their musicianship, when with all due respect, to the best group that ever lived, when they played American music, it was okay. You know what I mean? But it was very different. It's not the syncopation, the soul, the beat. But when they played their music, which was like, I want to hold your hand and love me do. And it was like, man, look at that, man. That's, you could feel the spark of talent. And then, of course, not too long after that, they did the Ed Sullivan show, and then everybody knew what that was, but it was phenomenal. There was no doubt when you went to entered that room, there was something very special going on.
Man, that's amazing.
It was amazing. It was quite a revelation for me too.
Well, so, good.
No, go ahead, Jonathan. No, jump on in. Sorry.
No, I was going to talk about from the Starlighters,
right.
The making the transition over to your group.
Well, there's a period of time that, like, as I say, it didn't just happen overnight. We did that European tour, and then I continued with Joey for a while. And then, I got another job out in Las Vegas, backing up this lady who was kind of a lounge singer. But you see, the thing is, in those days, before you could embark on any kind of career, regardless of what it was, you had to deal with Uncle Samuel. Uncle Samuel was dragging us into action. It wasn't like it is now, where people decide they're going to go in there. We were eligible for draft. So I really ascertained that there's no sense in me doing anything, just waiting. Let me just go to work. And I was a sideman for people's groups, which was fine because I learned a lot, especially when I went to Vegas. I really learned a lot. I learned never to gamble. Well, because I worked from 12 a.m. to 6 a.m. And 12 p.m. to, you know what I'm saying? And from the morning shift in the bar, so to speak, is a lounge. And I saw people actually lose their plane tickets home. They just, I said, well, and I got a lot of advice from, famous people that were working there. They warned me. They said, hey, kid, man, you know what? What do you make a week? Don't go near that room, dude, because you will not come out with anything, And I mean, not helping my Las Vegas career too well, but, I got a real education there. And it was kind of like, so-called, showbiz. Wow, this is so cool. And then I got drafted. See? And then Uncle Sam said, we'll call you because you don't look like our type, And that is a real long story short. He said, we'll wait. If there's a nuclear war, we'll call you. Otherwise, go home. So that's when I started the band.
So, I mean, I now this is going to sound like a silly question, but I always love band names, and I'm always curious, where they come from. And where did you pull Young Rascals from?
Well, this is an interesting story here because, we're going back to, we're talking about this book that I'm writing, We did a tour. We did a musical on Broadway, 2013, with Steve Van Zandt called Once Upon a Dream. I don't know if you're aware of that, Well, at this, they would do, we would have publicity sessions, where the people would come in and ask, the press would ask questions to each of us individual Rascal people. Everybody had a different answer for just that question. Everybody. That's why I started. I said, well, man, I've got to write this book because I'm not sure that Custer lost that battle after all. Who wrote that? So here's my story, okay? Sad but true. There was this gentleman in New York by the name of Soupy Sales. You familiar with Soupy Sales?
Oh, yeah. I
You gotta
remember
know
Soupy.
right?
Oh, for sure. Yeah,
One of the most
absolutely.
charming human beings
Mm,
you'll ever meet.
mm.
Well, huge fans of his. We were a huge fan. Well, he had a hit record called The Mouse. And we were working, like in New Jersey and, brief stints in Long Island and stuff like that. So we got to get discovered somehow. Here's an idea. Let's go and knock on WNEW TV and see if Soupy needs a group. So we walk in, and he was kind enough to see us, and right away he started with us, like, okay, everybody, grab your wallets,
Yeah.
So we start laughing, and then and so we told him, we said, Mr. Sales, you need a band. He says, you mean all these years I've been walking around without a band? I said, yes, exactly. You need a band. So he says, you got a hit record. You got a hit record, two-sided hit, So he stroked himself and he said, I notice you guys laugh at everything I say. He says, that could come in handy. Right? So he says, what's your name? And we had some stupid names. We kept looking for names and, and he said, nah, that's not going to work. He says, you know what I like to call you, but we could never put that on the billboard. He was so great, man. So he came up with his name, the Rascals.
Oh, my gosh.
I think that's the best story. I mean, because first of all, I love this man. This man was a mensch and a half. He was just, a gentleman. He was funny. He was kind, and then, of course, the second part of the story is how'd you get the Young Rascals? Well, that was the thing that our manager came up with because there was a conflict of interest with the name Rascals. Now, we're going way back to a man by the name of Milton Berle. You all know
wow.
Milton Berle?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Well, if you remember Milton Berle, he had this group on called the Harmonica Rascals.
Oh,
Mm.
no. Okay.
Now, if you Google that, you'll see it was a novelty act, but it was also, they had all different kinds of harmonicas, but they had the name Rascals.
Uh-huh.
So our manager, in his wisdom, Mr. Bernstein, said, well, I took it upon myself to name you the Young Rascals. And I said, oi, why the Young because for years, people would come knock on my door and say, hey, man, did that dog really have a black circle around his eye, or did you guys paint that? Spare me. So, exactly. So, I mean, it was just like a comedy of errors. So when we started having hit records, I said, let's drop the Young, and put the Rascals in, which caused more confusion, that's the story. They should put that in our name, the Confused Rascals.
Oh, that's funny. So you had a hit with I Ain't Gonna Eat My Heart Out Anymore, but then you had a huge hit with Good Lovin', which was actually recorded twice before you guys did it. Your version is listed in Rolling Stone's top 500 songs of all time. What made you decide to take a twice covered song and go for that?
Well, you see, in those days, the clubs were 21 and over. They weren't 18 yet. And the proprietors demanded that you do cover songs, not originals. They didn't want to hear any originals. So I go out of my way to find obscure songs that I could prove were not ours and put them into the repertoire, put them into the show. So, I mean, seriously, I mean, there were radio stations in New York, WWRL, there were black stations, R&B stations. And then we had a music store in New Rochelle, New York, that I could go in and purchase the 45s to show the proprietor, look, this is legit. Well, from the minute that we started putting certain songs into our act, and that was one, people got up and danced. They just reacted immediately to that song. Like, you've got a hit when people get up, dance, and then ask for it, again, and it just was like, we found a lot of songs like that. And the interesting thing is that Atlantic, when they signed us, they recorded us live the first time. They took all those songs and gave them to Wilson Pickett.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I'm talking about Mustang Sally. I'm talking about Land of a Thousand Dances. We used to do all those in our act, Of course, they didn't say thank you, but that's.
Was being on Sullivan's show help propel that, or that just?
Oh, no doubt. Oh, yeah, that was huge. That was the show in those days. It was
Right.
prior to Hullabaloo and Shindig and all those. That was it. Now, an outlet on television is readily available to acts, including the MTV. But in those days, no, that was the place.
Now, I'm always fascinated just by Sullivan. What was he like? I just keep curious.
Well, I tell you, he's exactly like you saw him. He was the story of how he came about. He was a columnist,
Right.
in those days. He was like a Walter Winchell, like those guys in the Post. Because in those days, that was the kind of like the method that you became known in the entertainment world, were those columns in the newspapers, And he gathered quite a collection of people that knew him and kind of catered to him. So I from what I understand, CBS gave him a show. And the interesting thing about the show is that in today's market, when you do a TV show, you get union scale.
Mhm.
But his show was not like that. His show, he had like a stipend. He had like a fee, let's say $200,000, $250,000 to put together a show. He would pay us our normal concert fee.
Mm.
See,
Wow.
it was a great idea, for
My
us.
gosh.
So basically, when we would do the show, I don't know if people realize it was a 7-day show. You start on Monday, early in the morning, rehearsing. You go through Saturday, and on Saturday night, you do a complete full show in front of an audience, not televised. And then on Sunday, you go live. And what kind of a guy was he? Well, he was from an earlier generation, so he kind of looked at us a little bit disdain. You could tell these are not my people. And his son-in-law, name was Bob Precht, Precht, was kind of like in charge of the place. And it was very, very disciplined until you went on the air. See, because if like when you see shows today, they're live, but they're taped.
Mhm.
Mhm.
This was live and not taped. And as you know, when you do a 15-second commercial or a 30-second commercial, or, that means 30 seconds. It doesn't mean 25 seconds. It doesn't mean 32 seconds. Well, so was his speech is supposed to be timed. But like most people who are on stage, he would look in the audience and he would see somebody he knew, totally lost track.
Oh my God.
Totally lost track. Well, now you took 10 seconds off of where? Ask Jackie Mason, rest his soul. That's what happened to him. How are you gonna cut a comedy act? What joke should I leave? Oh, you lose all your, it was chaotic, and because he was an older guy, you know what I mean? So he was kind of rough. He was kind of like, his demographic, so to speak, were Buddy Hackett and like those guys, all those phenomenal comics who we got to meet.
That's great.
Yeah, it
So,
was fun, man. It was fun. Backstage was, it was really enlightening.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah, it was really fun.
What a fascinating place to be. I mean, really.
Yeah, it was. Because these superstars backstage, and we even met the Little Mouse, all those things,
So after that album, with Good Luck, when you started writing your own songs, then doing your own
Oh yeah,
material?
I started writing songs because you got these Beatle guys and these Stone guys and this Dylan and Spoonful, people like that out there writing their own songs. I knew we could do it. We just needed the shot. I knew I could basically write because I've been writing all my life. Of creating it's one of the reasons that classical music kind of, it didn't appeal to me because I couldn't create, I couldn't do anything differently from what was written, you know?
So I want to know about some of the inspiration for some of these songs. Where'd they come from? Like A Girl Like You, Beautiful Morning, How Can I Be Sure?
Well, you know, people talk about a muse. You know, you have like somebody come into your life that inspires you to write. Well, I met this young lady, and all of those songs were about that relationship. And as I say, it goes through the whole period of time until we got to How Can I Be Sure, which was like, I don't know if this is right, you know. And so that's really where those came from. They were love songs, and then after that, you know, our generation, you know, that's why I'm so kind of proud of, you know, like Neil Young, Joni Mitchell, and these people that are making a stand right now. I think you're aware of that with Spotify, right?
Yeah.
You know, we really cared. You know what I mean? Like, you know, we really thought we could change the world, you know, and kind of make it a safer place and a happier place and a golden rule, like do unto others place. And, you know, we're pretty naive, but we gave it a try. So that's why I love to see they're still doing it, you know. I mean, I do this song in my set. It's called A Ray of Hope. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but I announce it like this. I remember when you could write a song without pissing anybody off. Can't do that nowadays. Somebody angry.
That's true. No, I'm just curious though. How Can I Be Sure has been covered so many times. Do you have a particular favorite out of all the covers, or no?
Well, the covers. I don't know if I have a favorite. I mean, I think Dusty Springfield did it. I think that's one of them I like. She was such a doll. She was fantastic. What a talented lady. You know, we lost a lot of these people. You know, we really have.
And also on the same vein of question, A Beautiful Morning. I see it in movies all the time. Anyone that stands out to you that you really loved that was being used?
Oh yeah, absolutely. What's his name? Robert De Niro had it in. Had it. Oh God, I can't think of the name of the show. It was A Bronx Tale.
Oh,
and in the second scene when you went to the racetrack, fantastic. It's always great. You go into a place, you go into a restaurant, or you go into an elevator, and you hear your music, and you look around, and you say, nobody knows that's me up there. You know?
Yeah. I mean, that was going to be one of my questions. It's got to be an overwhelmingly satisfying feeling to have. I mean, you know, you're part of the soundtrack of our lives. I mean, not just these movies and stuff, because I mean, believe me, I'm listening to your songs all the time with my wife, and you know, our Pandora is set to that era because it's our favorite, and you know, that's just got to be incredible.
It's really interesting, you know. I mean, from the first time that you hear your song on a radio to when you go to a dentist and, you know, they put these things in your ears and you groove, and the guy goes in your ear, he says, you know, that's my first experience with that song. You know, I mean,
now
you know, there's all kinds of stories like that.
There's a whole nother level I never even thought about before. So that's fantastic.
No, it's a treat. And, you know, getting serious. I mean, I was working in, I think it was upstate New York. And I went over to the, you know, the dressing room sometimes, you know, like the trailers, you know, and then from the trailer to the stage, there's like a zone where the public can be, you know, especially if they know anybody. And this gentleman came up to me, you know, and he said, can I talk to you? And I said, yeah, of course. I'm not on for a few minutes. And he says, I want you to have these. And I said, yeah, what's this? He says, well, I got to tell you, man, you saved my life. Said, what are you talking about? This is also in the book, and he has it in a book of his. I was in Vietnam, and I was one of those Navy guys that we would go on the boat on the Mekong to go up and pick up the wounded. And I heard you guys were going to be on Hullabaloo, and I asked if I could, you know, get on the next boat, and that boat didn't make it. And I said, like, wow, you know, you just go like, hello, that's pretty serious stuff there, dude. You know, he says, yeah, man, if I'd have been on that boat, I wouldn't be here.
Wow.
It's just you don't realize, like the impact, that music has on our world.
Well, I mean, that song never fails to put a smile on my face when I hear it every
Absolutely.
single time. Yeah. Now, I would, with the Rascals, what was it like in those early days for you in the band? I mean, touring in Europe and in the Cavern Club.
Well, you got a bunch of young people striving for a purpose, and it was just joyous. The only word you could say, because you have to understand that those days were kind of like virginity in this music business for people like us. I mean, there was nothing like us happening prior to the late 60s. John Mellencamp, one time I saw him in Hartford, and he said to me, he says, we got to thank you. He said, we have it made now. You guys were pioneers. Everything had to be created. And it's true. I mean, road managers. I mean, I went on the road with that Van Zandt thing. We had 22 people working for us. We had two, one to drive the car and one to, put up the sound. That 22 people, it's a whole different world, but it was exciting. I mean, in those old days, as we started to have hit records, the audience grew. However, our functionability, for want of a better word, to produce sound for a larger audience, we didn't have the equipment. We didn't have the gear. We kept trying. If you look at early Beatles and things like that, they used their guitar amps for vocals. And I remember vividly a company came along, was to become the Clare Brothers, which became like an industry standard, said, hey, we got an idea. We would like to provide sound for your next show on the house, just so you can see what we do. Well, that all evolved, and I've got stories like that for days of things that were not in place then that are now in place.
Wow. Now you mentioned the Beatles. You opened for them during that whole the height of their pandemonium. I mean, craziness. What was that like? Dealing with all that pandemonium and stuff.
Well, we really never really opened for them. As I say, that story kind of got convoluted.
Really? Okay.
You're talking about the Shea Stadium, correct?
Right.
No. You see, what happened there is our manager, Sid Bernstein, brought them to the United States. He brought them the first time when they did Sullivan. And he brought them the second time when they did Shea.
Okay.
And what happened is, it's kind of an interesting event because we were present. We were in the dressing, in the dugout, actually. And all of a sudden, on the Shea Stadium sign, the old, Mets place, the Rascals are coming. The Rascals are coming. The Rascals are coming. The Rascals come. Leave it to Sydney, right? Siddler was a promotional expert, and Epstein backstage said, that's cute. Get it off or we're not going on. So there's your story. So 50,000 fans saw the Rascals are coming.
That's great.
They didn't have opening acts. They didn't need opening acts. They filled 50,000 seats in an instant.
You don't need to warm up for the Beatles. I mean,
in an instant.
So, now you mentioned about all your kids turning around. How did your life change once you go from these kids with a group to all of a sudden your songs are all over the radio, huge hits? How did your life change at that point?
Well, seriously, you got that right. I mean, you got to really hold on to your hat, man, because matter of fact, they stole my hat. They did. I used to have a good luck hat. Yeah, I mean, there's no way to describe that. I think, in my case, I have my story. I've seen a lot of people lose their balance, easily lose your balance. There's a different Felix off stage and there's a different Felix on stage. And sometimes you lose that perspective of, which is who is who, Well, I was very fortunate to find a guru. I found a Swami from India, Sachidananda, who opened up the Woodstock Festival. And he put me on. He put me back on Earth because I went to see him, and I was, we were rocking, man. We had number ones, number twos, and all kinds of stuff, And I remember my father's words. My father, he was a dentist, and he said, "Listen, I'm a dentist as long as I have that sign in front of my office. I'm a dentist. But you better keep making hit records, dude. Or you ain't nothing. You're gone."
Wow.
Now you think about that. I mean, that slippery field that's underneath you, oh, you had a hit record or two, huh? Now what? You better keep making hit records. It's a slippery slope.
Wow. Yeah.
And to make a long story short, I got excellent advice from my teacher, about that. And it stuck. And it kind of brought me back to, a lot has to do with your upbringing, man. If you have people, in your family that are, on Earth, and give you guidance, you're okay. If you don't, and that's what happens with a lot of the artists. They don't have a familial structure that can give them a secure foundation. And they go off into the wilderness. Mm-hmm. And it's sad because I have a lot of dear friends, people that I knew and loved, kind of lost it, man.
Wow. Well,
yeah, it happens all the time.
Yeah. Well, certainly. I grew up in show business, and I've had contemporaries. I've seen, friends of mine that have not been able to handle it.
Kid actors and stuff like that. I mean, those stories. Which reminds me, I'm doing a tour with one of those guys, Micky Dolenz.
We're going to ask about that in a few minutes.
We certainly are.
He survived. I don't know how sane he is, but he survived.
Well, that's just it. I mean, there are the ones that do and the ones that don't. And I firmly, believe your philosophy that you've got to find a place of grounding, to keep that going. Because not everything lasts, or sometimes it changes shape, and you got to move with it and still be a human being.
Well, you've seen it firsthand, so you know exactly what it's about, and it's a sad thing to watch because. You're exactly right. People think, well, this is never going to end. Oh, yeah, no, it's going to end. Dude.
Oh, yeah.
You better be careful. And then there's people like, Joe Namath. I remember when Joe Namath he had some serious people helping him with investments. So he's okay. His knees went, but he's still, you have to pay attention to life. And life hopefully is a long, long journey.
Yes. Well, to just kind of segue to your memoir for a minute. Obviously, I'm sure all of this is in there. Why did you decide to write it at this point and not perhaps earlier in your career at a different time?
Well, as I said, those press conferences with everybody having a different answer kind of was the trigger, and I said, wow, I better write down my thoughts and, my remembrances, because I don't know, some of these stories, they just don't make sense, it's the old I factor, I, the ego, which is what my guru taught me about. That's your main, enemy. That's your main opponent, and that's really what got the band was the egos. We never had any real, embezzlement or people stealing somebody's wife, or not even drugs or stuff like that. That was really, something that would destroy. It was egos.
Wow. Well, obviously, it sounds like as much of a clarification memoir as it is a storytelling memoir. Were there any things you rediscovered going through the process of writing it? Because I've written a memoir myself.
Yes.
And it really helped me. What it did for me, because growing up as a child in the business, all of a sudden I'm an adult and I have this whole history that I can see on videotape and on TV and in the movies.
Exactly.
But then really putting together the structure of how it all happened for me, there were many revelations I discovered along the process. So were there any new things that, that came to mind or, brought you, came back to you during the writing process?
Well, yeah, there were many of those events because, I did a page, I said, well, I'm going to prepare a list of all of the people that I have been either on stage with or on television with, I could not believe the list, man. I mean, we're talking Bing Crosby, you know what I'm saying? We're talking Andy Williams. And I'm saying, my God, you know what? I've been blessed, man. You know,
Yeah, it's amazing.
And then to continue it down to, like, you know, as part of ASCAP, they send us down to Washington, D.C. to lobby for certain publishing and songwriting. I met John Lewis, you know, I met so many people, man. And I wrote that down and said, wow, you know what? I'm a lucky guy, you know. And you look back, because, you know, I don't like to look back. I purposely left out a lot of the, see, what's the American word? Surus. I left a lot of it out. I don't think people really care about you know, I mean, I had lawsuits with my band, and, you know, who cares? I mean, like I said, you want to hear about that? No, nobody wants to hear about that. We had a lot of sad things happen to the band internally that I'd rather leave it out. Who wants to know about that? You know what I'm saying? It's an embarrassment to me. But yeah, you know, I mean, I think you understand because, you know, when I lived in Connecticut, and I really felt like an alien because, you know, see where you guys are from. I mean, you know, you talk about New York, you talk about, I imagine LA, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, music, I mean, entertainment industry is a given. But in Connecticut, it's just like, oh, so how is it on the moon? What is it like? Can you breathe up there? You know?
Oh, I know exactly what you're saying. It's like you would be, yeah, it's all part of the normal life in Los Angeles. Everybody's associated with it in some way, shape, or form. But yeah, to transplant that somewhere else,
they don't understand. And you know, like I say, you know, once you start talking about it, you go like, we're not normal. You know, this is not normal. No. Yeah. This is not normal. This is Abby normal, as they say.
Right.
Yeah. Right.
That's funny. I grew up in LA. I grew up in New York, and we're both in Florida now. So.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so really? Wow.
Yeah.
Well, my question is, how do you like it?
I love it.
Oh, I do too. I found a wonderful place that I wanted to spend the rest of my life. That's nice. Outside of all the hustle and bustle of all of that. And yeah, it's very it's lovely for me for sure.
Because
New York's a place to visit now.
Well, I love New York, man.
Yeah, me too. But
I mean, New York is home. And you know, I was there recently, and it's you know, it's kind of coming back. We're getting there. It's getting there. But I mean, but you know, the reason I asked is because my wife is from Arizona, and we're in Nash Vegas. You know, Nashville is become like, oh boy. Oh, excuse me. Nashville is like the place for. It's the bachelorette capital of the United States.
We're gonna ask you about Nashville as well, right? Yes.
It is. They've lost their balance here. You know, it used to be like a southern quaint. Now it's like a. Are you kidding me? Wait a second. Is that beer you're drinking at 2 p.m? Yes, as a matter of fact, it is. You know. Yeah. So Florida has been looking. A lot of my friends are moving down to Florida. A lot of my, you know, family have migrated from the east. You know, and so I'm always wonder how it is down there. Yeah.
Well, we'll show you around when you come. It's
well,
great.
I'll keep your number, man, because you know, as I say, and then we've had a heck of a winter up here, as you can see.
Yes,
gosh, yeah.
A little different from. Well, you're pretty cold down there, I understand too.
Yeah, but I'm in the 60s and cold though, so I can't.
That's true. Yeah. That's my wife's climate right there. Oh, it's getting cold. It's 55. Yeah, I know. Be careful.
Oh, exactly. Yeah, we're ridiculous. I'm the same way too. That's you know, yeah.
Yep.
Definitely.
West Coasters.
Heavy
Florida weather advisories come on if it hits the 40s. Like, you know, don't go out. It's not safe.
Yeah.
That's really interesting, though. I mean, like I said, it's a different subject, but I might take you up on some of that advice.
Anytime. Now I have to. You alluded to it that it's not important, but I have to ask now. Then why did the Rascals break up? Just everyone wanted to go their separate ways. What? No. It's a much
simpler story than that. One of the members, my co-writer, my singing buddy Eddie Brigatti, decided he didn't want to do it anymore, and he decided at a very inopportune time. We were actually free agents going from Atlantic Records to Columbia Records. And we were at a contract signing, as a matter of fact, which is kind of unique. And instead of signing his name on the dotted line, he left. And talk about planning, you know.
Wow.
It was a major, it wasn't really a major surprise because he had left a few years prior to that. He had tried to escape, so to speak. The reasons behind that, well, as the years go by, I'm starting to find out a lot more, and a lot more, and a lot more. But there really was no obvious reason at that point that he should leave, especially in that manner. So when that happened, it's kind of like, you know, one of the tires on your vehicle decided to, you know, go right and you all going left, you know. Wow. You know, but it was caught us totally unawares. And CBS was Clive Davis at the time. He signed us anyway. He said, it's okay. You know, we want to go on without him. So I tried to revamp the Rascal brand, so to speak. And you know, when you're a young guy and, you know, basically I was in my 20s, you know, you learn a lot about, you know, marketing and proper things to do and improper things to do. And I realized that, you know, the audiences, they lock on to a certain, this is the group sound. And so when I tried to expand it and bring it into a different, you know, I'd say demographic, because, you know, in my mind, I mean, it's a long answer to a question, you know, like we had gone from the AM radio hits to now FM album cuts. You know, you got people like the Grateful Dead playing like concerts where they do one song for a half an hour. I tried to expand it, and you know, it was a tough pill for the audience to swallow. You know, but I mean, it's interesting because those two albums that I did on Columbia became hits in other parts of the world, like especially like Asia. You know, and so it was really interesting. But yeah, Eddie kind of left.
Oh well. Now, well, writing your memoir, what has that made you think about your place and, you know, your legacy, your place in, you know, rock and roll history?
Oh, not really. You know, I mean, because, you know, as I said, we get all these awards, you know, and the one that really stands out to me is the Songwriters Hall of Fame. That meant a lot to me. That really did. I had tears in my eyes when I got that phone call, because that's an award, you know, that people don't even know about because it's not televised. They don't have a museum, you know. Of course, Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and everybody knows about, and which is cool, very cool. But the problem with Rock and Roll Hall of Fame is there's so many people deserving of being in there.
Absolutely.
You know, and they don't get in. You know, like for example, Chubby Checker all the time. Every time I see him, he goes, "Man, what's going on with that? What's going on with that?" And also, I got my dear friend, rest his soul, Eddie Money. Felix, you got to get me in the Hall of Fame. I says, I can't. This is my kid's thing. I'm worthless. She says, sometimes I feel like the Pete Rose of rock and roll.
Oh, wow. Wow.
Because, you know, evidently the press, you know, didn't put him in there. He had a lot of hits, Mr. Money.
Sure.
Yeah.
Now, speaking of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, I mean, what was it like the moment that you discovered that you made it in? I mean, can you just walk us through that a little bit?
Well, you know, again, the thing about the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame is the nomination process. See, we as what do you call it, inductees, we all vote for who we would like to get in. We get a list of about 10 people, 10 acts, whatever. And then we choose 5 and send in our ballot. But it's the nomination process that's the rub. That's where the problem is. See, so we had a lot of people putting our name in front of the nomination committee. One of them, Steve Van Zandt. Second one, rest his soul, Phil Spector. Third, Frankie Valli. Fourth, Dion DiMucci. You got to have help. You got to have people putting your name in. Otherwise, you don't get on the ballot. You don't get on the ballot, you can't get in. So when we finally got in, it was it was wonderful. You know, it was just so interesting, you know, and we did the, matter of fact, I don't know who knows or who doesn't know, but when Steve Van Zandt did his introduction of us, if you haven't seen it, go online and see it, because not only was it really good, but that's where he got his interest in doing the Godfather, the Sopranos.
Oh.
David Chase saw him there, saw that introduction, and asked him to kind of like audition.
Wow.
That's how good it was.
Wow. Oh my gosh. Yes. I'm going to have to check that out. That's
Yeah, check it. It's online.
Yeah.
It was really good. And he told me, he says, I had another half hour, but I was too embarrassed to do it. But he prepared for that, and it was good, man. It was funny.
Well, going back to what you just mentioned in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, okay, you're going to be touring with someone who I think belongs in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and actually someone we're going to reach out to as well about appearing with us, but
Sure.
Micky Dolenz from the Monkees on the Legends Live tour. How did that come about?
Well, that came out as a business decision by the people who manage and, represent us in agencies. And, I've crossed paths with those guys for many years, the Monkee guys. And, we just lost one, we lost three, as a matter of fact. And I had the really good pleasure of knowing them. And, I just, Micky's he's a wonderful guy. He's funny as heck, and I think that the idea behind it is, I think they call it Legends Live. And
Right.
I think the idea about it is that their music, which, as you know, they were really so huge that they could get the finest songwriters, in the United States and maybe the world to write their songs. So they got some wonderful songs, and they're happy songs, and so are ours, so are mine. So basically, I think the time is good for people to kind of smile a little bit, go out there and say like, okay, whew, we had enough. Let's have a good time. And I think that's what we're going to try to bring, if we can just get past this pandemic and get back on the road to the public.
Well, how did you, the two of you, figure out what songs you were going to include?
Well, we're not quite there yet. We're doing that
Oh.
right now. We're trying to do a little bit together, and that's we're trying to get rehearsals and stuff together to do that. I think it would be nice if we could do some songs together, maybe even share a bit. We're getting it there. We're getting there.
Oh, I hope so. I'd love to see that.
Yeah.
Now, where can people find information about the tour? On your website?
Well, on my website, and then probably on his, mine is felixcavalieremusic.com. And I'm sure there'll be a lot of blurbs around. We were supposed to start earlier, and pandemic kind of postponed it till May or June. So we're getting there, and we've done a lot of cruises together, and we've done a lot of venues together, but never as a tour. So this is going to be interesting.
And you're actually going to be in my neck of the woods soon. The Rascals in Dania Beach in February 26th. I'm hoping to go to that show, by the way. Where else
Well, I
will
hope
you
you
be?
do, and I hope you take my number and give me a holler so we can get together.
Oh, I would love that. Absolutely. I'd love to see you. So where else will you be appearing next?
Well, everything's kind of up in the air right now. I'm just getting my schedule together. I've got a bunch of private things that I'm doing in terms of, like, I'm getting a nice award here in town from humanitarian situation, and I've got shows coming up in May and March, and we don't really publicize them until they become real because of this postponements that we get so many times. That Dania Beach, this is the third time we're slated to do that. But we're going on a cruise. We're going to be on Flower Power Cruise in March. Beginning of April, we're also going to be back in Florida, but we're going to be on the coast, the other side there.
The West Coast.
Yeah, we're going to be over there, Bonita Springs, and I think Anna Maria Island. It's just really difficult to plan ahead with
Sure.
this. I think we're going to be okay, though. I hope so.
I think so now. I think so.
Well, I think once you visit Anna Maria Island, you're probably not going to want to go home.
No,
it's
yeah.
it's amazing. You're going to some great places for sure.
Good.
Yeah.
Good.
Now, you ever hear from fans that are like disappointed that you didn't play a certain song in the tours and the concerts?
Always, yeah. You know, who was it? Abraham Lincoln said you can't please everybody all the time, you know. But, you know, there's also people that said, I don't care what you say about me, just mention my name, you know. People are funny. I mean, I know, like, you know, a lot, you know, you get in hot water when you talk, but a lot of the Monkee fans, you know, they're pretty avid, man. I mean, you know, like, don't sing that song. Yeah, you know, come on, man. Let's lighten up a little bit here, man. This is, you know, this is life we're engaging in.
I just saw Micky and Mike on their tour when
Did you? Yeah.
A couple months ago.
Yeah.
Now I people ask me like all the time, like, you know, out of your books, which is your favorite? I always say the one I'm writing now. So
Exactly.
do you have a favorite
Absolutely.
song of yours? So,
Well, you know, I mean, you know, songs are like kids, you know, and
right.
so you write books. That's interesting. That's a lot of work. I found that out. You know, I moved to Nashville primarily because I really enjoy the creative process of writing, and this is the place for that. It still is, you know, kind of like LA is for the screenwriters. This is for the songwriters, and so, you know, I work and during the pandemic, I was able to do another album. I was so happy because of the internet and because of the, you know, the fact that you can do it online now. And so some of the stuff that I've done now, I mean, I love it, you know. Now, of course, the people don't even know about it yet, you know. But, you know, it's like that, it's that creative process that, you know, you really worship and admire. Thank God you still have those cells working, you know. I think, yeah. Anyway, yeah.
Gosh. Well, I mean, look, we don't ever get tired of singing your songs. Are there any
Oh,
of yours
great.
that you get tired of singing that
No,
you have
no,
to sing? Or
especially with the band I have now. I've got a group of really talented musicians from Nashville now, and you know, they make it really enjoyable because, you know, there's a different school of thought. Like, you know, like for example, I did that Ringo All-Star tour in the 90s, you know, and, you know, the premise behind that tour is that all of us so-called all-stars, because there's only one star in that band, believe me, and that's Ringo. We all do each other's songs. And the particular group that I was part of had Randy Bachman, Mark Farner, Billy Preston, John Entwistle, you know, and of course, Ringo and his son. And some people, like, for example, Mark Farner, he wants that song to be an exact duplication of what it was 400 years ago. You know?
Interesting.
Well,
I don't. I have my guys, let's say, extrapolate. Even though, you know, the audience may, well, I'm sure they know after the first or second verse, you know, that we're doing something a little different, but they create parts inside of that music that make it just so joyous to play. And if you come to see us at Dania Beach, you'll hear that it's like a tapestry, you know. And every night it's just like puts a smile on my face as well, because it's good, you know. And I just find that an interesting kind of thing. You got to play it exactly like you did it when you were 18 years old. You know, I you know, you don't have to play it exactly, do you?
sure, right. Yeah. Are there ever any talks about getting the original members back together for a reunion, or no?
Well, you know, unfortunately, right now, that's an impossibility because of health reasons.
Okay.
Yeah. You know, I mean, I don't know if you know, the last time I tried to do that, it was 2019. And I had gone to Hawaii, you know, and I did a show out there, and our group had the really good fortune of being tremendously popular out there.
Yeah.
And we used to do shows. As a matter of fact, we did a show before there was any venues or theaters on the little islands. We did them in the street. So those people, they really, really appreciated that, because, you know, like, it was free concerts, take a day off, you know what I'm saying, from either the pineapple or the sugar cane, and come out. They never forgot that. So when I went back in the 2000, what was it? 2000, it must have been 17, 18, I went there. They said, can you come one more time? Can you come out here again? Can you bring the guys out? I tried. The only one that really was available that wanted to go out was Gene Cornish. Unfortunately, he had a heart attack on the road, on the stage.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And he got very lucky, man, because Senor Trump was out there at the same time in Billings, Montana. So the city was on high alert, and that ambulance and those people got there like that.
Wow.
Otherwise, he wouldn't have been here.
Oh, gee. Wow.
Yeah. So he's still, rehabilitating, and I understand, like my old drummer there, Dino, he's got some problems as well.
Oh.
So unfortunately, we had our opportunity, and it didn't happen. So now I don't think it can happen.
Well, Felix,
I hate to put that on the air because there's nothing like good news, but we're okay. Still, it's the air is coming in and out. We're good.
Yes. No, Felix, I mean, thank you so much for joining us today. I mean, really, it's been an absolute pleasure. Like I said, I grew up listening to your music. I did as well. And we're just thrilled.
Yeah. And I've never seen Jonathan so excited that when he told me that you agreed to be on our show. So thank you so much. This was awesome.
And, that's part of one of the reasons why I love being from New York, man, is that, we have that simpatico with each other there, I had a when in the heyday, I went down to the Village, and I was buying some music because I was doing this project, and this guy behind the counter said, "Felix, you made it okay for Italians to have long hair. We used to get beat up before you guys came along."
That's
New York, man. Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, again, no, thank you for joining us. It's been an absolute pleasure. I'm Jonathan Rosen, along with Ike Eisenmann, and we thank again Felix Cavaliere for joining us. And this has been Pop Culture Retro. And please subscribe. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Pop Culture Retro, where no one was hurt during the making of this podcast.